I am here with Judge. Do we still call you Judge? What?
Everybody still calls me judge. And to be honest, when you were a judge, you're always a judge, but people can call me whatever. I'm not big. I was never big on the title. I actually was not on the bench anymore when I finally got used to how many people called me judge and just started answering to it. Cause I used to be on the bench and be like, "Who, Leticia?" Right.
So I'm excited to kind of hear who you are and really the story behind it because so many people say you're just guilty, right? And I admire you because I didn't realize how young you are and how young you were as a judge.
Yeah, I was the youngest judge elected in Rochester. I was 33.
But thank you for joining Toxin Magazine. My name is Shanique Bird, and I'm here with former Judge Asticia
Estacio.
Lastasia.
Leticia Estacio.
Tell for people who may not know you, because I have audience outside of Rochester as well. Give us a little background on who you are and how you became so popular in Rochester, New York.
It was totally a mistake. Never my goal. I'm a defense attorney now. I previously was, I lived in Rochester my whole life. I went to MCC after becoming a teen mother, and then continued straight through. I graduated from high school in 99, then college in 2000, then college in 2002, then college in 2006. And by the time I was done, I had a master's in social work and I had a law degree. And I knew that I wanted to be an attorney and I wanted to have a social work background because there was a certain demographic that I wanted to serve. I wanted to do justice, and I didn't feel like justice was what was occurring in any of the legal systems that I had encountered in my lifetime, right? I had seen plenty of loved ones dealing with being arrested, dealing with, I felt, being treated unjustly, dealing with craziness in family court, and just feeling generally not cared about by a
Mhm.
system that has so much control over your life.
Right. Mhm.
So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm all about being the change. Let me go do that real quick. Let me go be an example to this little girl, and show her that children are not an excuse. If anything, they're a motivation.
Mhm.
And went on. And then I came back to Rochester because I was in Buffalo briefly while I was in law school. Started working at a not-for-profit here, left there and went to the district attorney's office, which was interesting because I wanted to be a public defender, right? I wanted a defense firm. And now Judge Caroline Morrison said to me, she was working at the DA's office, and she said, Leticia, if you think that there's injustice, shouldn't you be a prosecutor? Because those are the
Mhm.
only people that get to make offers. And I was like, oh, girl, oh my goodness. Because she was totally right. As a defense attorney, I can attack an accusatory, or I can say, I can ask questions, but the facts are the facts. And I can't change the offer. As a DA, I could say, you know what, you deserve an ACD. You know what, you deserve probation. You know what, you deserve a conditional discharge. You can't do that as a defense attorney.
Right.
So I
Right.
went to the DA's office and I enjoyed it there. And I was in the sex abuse bureau, so to
Okay.
the extent that you're able to enjoy it, but I never felt a whole lot of guilt, honestly, about prosecuting those kinds of cases at all. Um,
Right.
but after some time, it takes a toll. There was primarily children that I was dealing with that were being raped, and there's not usually physical evidence, so there's always, uncertainty in every case about what's happening. You don't have, and people are going to prison for life, and I was always uncomfortable with that. So I was
Mm.
like, I think I'm gonna go try this defense thing. So I did. I left and I started my own practice, and it was going really well. And then I don't know if you're religious, but they say God will make a way where there's no way.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
started having this nagging feeling that I was supposed to be a judge, and I did not have any desire. And I did not care for the judges. They made me very uncomfortable. I didn't like to be around them. You know what I mean? But it was like, if you can do things as a DA, you can do everything as a judge. So
Exactly.
there were only 9 seats available when I kept feeling this. And I was walking back from, again, Judge Morrison's swearing in ceremony where she had just ran. And I was having an internal debate with God, like, stop telling me to run for a position that doesn't even exist. And literally, I got a text message saying the legislature just created a 10th judge seat for you. And I was like, oh, I'm going to shut up then. I'm just going to shut up and run for this real quick. So,
Right.
and I ran and nobody supported me. The Dems didn't support me. They told me I could never win. They told me I couldn't beat the machine. They supported a white candidate over me. And and nobody thought of me. They were like, you're young, you're arrogant, you're pompous to even think that you're qualified. And I'm like, well, I didn't make up the requirements, right? Somebody
Right.
else did. I just read them. And then so,
Right. And you qualified, right?
right, I'm like, I didn't, but they were pissed, girl. And then you should have saw when I won.
Wow. And what year was this?
I won in 2014, right? So the election is it was a primary in this case. So we had a primary in 2014. You actually take the bench in 2015.
Okay.
So when I say to you, I got elected in 2014, that would have been November. January 2015, I start. April 2015, I got smoke. And it really was before April. It was February that I had smoke already. We just didn't get to handwritten discussions about it until April.
Okay. Okay. Now tell us your experience. So we know what's going on with, do we still call him a judge, right?
Well, he
Judge
didn't resign.
Dorian Craig.
He's still very much a judge. He just
Okay.
resigned as the 7th judicial administrator. So he's just
Okay.
no longer the boss of all the judges, but he's still very much a Supreme Court judge who will be presiding over your cases when you go into court.
Okay, so that is the confusing part. So when they say he stepped down, clarify what that means to
He
us.
stepped down. He had an administrative role,
Mhm.
which is why he was often so actively speaking about my case, because he said it was his job as the administrator of the 7th Judicial District, even though he didn't do that for any of the other judges' cases that were not people of color. But he was the administrator, and he said that as a result of that photo surfacing, he's not going to step down as the administrator. But he's
Okay.
still a judge. He's still a Supreme Court judge.
Okay. So how was he in relation to you? So was he your boss, or as you said, he kind of monitored all of the judges in
Yes,
this? Is it
in
in
the 7th
Monroe
Judicial
County?
District. In the 7th Judicial District. So he's got
Okay.
Ontario County as well.
Okay. Okay. And so
And maybe some others, honestly. I don't know. Don't give me a
okay.
brain about the whole district. But yes, he monitors other judges too.
Okay. Now, when you began working with Judge Doran, so when you began working with him, under him, right? Is it under him? Would it be?
It's kind of under. He's the administrator. So he's not my direct boss. He's not my
Okay.
supervisor. In fact, when you're an elected official, the people are your boss. So there's
Okay,
not
right.
really a lot of conversations about the way you do your work generally, because unless you're breaking some rules or regulation, you know what I mean? Unless you're
Right.
doing something unethical or illegal, generally you do what you want to do because you had a platform when you ran, you got elected on that platform, and then you do what you said you were going to do.
Okay. So prior to your DUI, right? Did you have any disciplinary action against you, or any, I know it's called administrative complaints, I think it is. Like, what
No.
is it called?
Yeah, you can file complaints against judges. You can file grievances against judges for doing things on the bench or for being rude to you. And sometimes court watchers will say things. Prior to my arrest, I had never had any type of negative interaction with anyone who wasn't a judge.
Okay.
I had only had problems with my colleagues.
Okay.
I had no issues with the people that elected me. I had no issues with the court staff. I had no issues with the deputies. I only had issues with the judges.
What was the
Literally
first incident that you knew you were being targeted because of your race?
The first incident occurred when I was in part 2 or 3, and I was in part 2 and my cousin was murdered.
Oh, wow.
And because I had only taken in 500 cases, right? I didn't have a lot of cases. I didn't have much work to do. I made my schedule such that I had court on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday only. I didn't have court on Monday. I didn't have court on Friday. I would go and be with my family and do stuff. My cousin had been murdered and I didn't have a caseload. And one of the judges made a statement on the record in front of the media that I was stealing from the taxpayers, that he didn't believe I was putting in 40 hours a week. And it was impossible. And that the judges don't punch the time clock. You know that, right?
Oh, right. I would assume they don't.
They come and go
Right.
as they please, honey, as they please. If you ever been in court, you know that they come when they come and they go when they go. And court starts when they get there.
Right.
Okay, they're always on time. You might not be. But so I was baffled. And I was like, he can't do this. And then he was the arraignment judge and he refused to arraign my cases. And I was like, you're the administrator. Your job is to handle this. And it was not handled. And then to add insult to injury, when it was handled, the remedy was to take all of my cases on one day. One day I was told, you have to adjourn court. You can't have hearings at 11 o'clock, which is my business. When I have my hearings, you don't do this to any other judges, right? I couldn't have hearings at 11 o'clock. And I said, I'm going to have my hearings. I made people take off from work. I had them subpoenaed. I had them, get childcare arrangements. I'm not going to inconvenience my constituents because you're having a tantrum.
Right.
All of my cases were taken from me that day and reassigned to a different judge who went in and adjourned all of them. This was completely inappropriate. Judge Doran, again, did not intercede, did not stop it, did not. So I, in April, made a claim, I don't want to say made a claim, wrote a letter to him detailing that I was experiencing a hostile work environment and that the Hall of Justice was clearly a racist place already. We knew that, right? We know systemically racism is problematic, but that it was being handed out by my colleagues to me. And one colleague actually said to me, I know your family. I know the community you come from. People like you don't belong on the bench.
Oh, wow.
This is in February, March. People like me, what kind of people are those? Because I'm just a duly elected official, just like you, honey, with a law degree and a degree in social work. So what community are you referring to specifically that shouldn't have people from it be in the judiciary? And none of those concerns were ever alleviated to my satisfaction. There was a very hostile conversation where it basically was like, if the administrative judge says something, then you should pay attention. And I was like, she's not my boss. You're not my boss. Nobody here is my boss. I'm elected. So if I'm not breaking rules and I'm not committing ethical violations, do me a favor and let's not talk anymore.
Right.
And I don't know. Part of what I've been told is that when people are newer, sometimes they get picked on. And a lot of times what they'll do is just say, okay, to everything, you know, like, and then do whatever they want to do, because you shouldn't be in my court anyway. But they'll just pretend that they're going to do what you said. But I didn't get the memo. And that's really not how I'm built. I really usually am pretty honest. So when you say do this, I say, are you my boss? Can you make me? Because no offense, but I don't want to be a judge the way you were a judge. I wasn't impressed with the way you were judging. That's why I decided to run. And we didn't have to have that conversation ever because it's offensive. But if you want to start talking about judging styles, it's a two-way conversation.
Right. So your first interaction with Judge Doran, how was that?
I can't say I have a first interaction with him, right? Because remember, I was a defense attorney and I was a private attorney, so I already knew who he was.
Okay, so you don't kind of recall how, because sometimes when you first meet someone, maybe there's an introduction or something like that. It's not like that.
Oh, no, I don't remember how I met him. I didn't have any real interactive relationship with him until I became a judge.
Okay.
Because he primarily practiced in Ontario County until he ran for Supreme Court and became the 7th judicial administrator. So he was an Ontario County court judge.
People are stating that he has done so much for diversity. He is working really hard to change the court systems. And so when I hear what you're just saying, it kind of contradicts what other people are saying. I don't know if you saw the statement that Reverend Stewart made that he can vouch that Judge Doran is not a racist today.
In the most respectful way that I can possibly say it, Reverend Stewart has made quite a few statements recently that I question wholeheartedly. And I don't know how anyone can vouch for another person not being racist. I don't know how anyone can vouch for someone else's experiences, but I can tell you that when my situation was going on and I did an open letter to the media, Craig Doran told me to use the back door to get in the Hall of Justice. That was in 2018. He told me to walk by the dumpsters and come through the back door as a seated judge.
Now, why did he tell you that?
Because I was not allowed to use my secure pass anymore. I was not allowed to go through the entrance like every other employee. I was being, again, singled out and treated differently. And so when I went to court, and to this day, when I go to court, I stand in line with the defendants. I put my bag on a Scantron. I expose myself to additional risk of COVID, right? Every day when I go to court, every single time I go to work, and I watch court reporters and secretaries and non-attorneys walk past me without being searched, without any issues. And I watch white attorneys that I know have been convicted of DWIs, that I know have DWIs pending currently, walk past me with no issue. But for some reason, and the reason is Craig Doran, who literally still requires that deputies escort me into chambers with judges, just me, it's difficult for me to say what is the difference.
So you initially thought Judge Doran was a racist?
I think everyone is racist.
Right.
Judge Doran is a judge from Ontario County. So I'm going to give him some extra drops in the water of my thoughts about his racism. And then I've actually seen Judge Doran preside over cases as a judge where I did feel that people were treated disparately. I did feel that their sentences were excessive. I did feel like it was some Black people shouldn't drive through Ontario County stuff. So that's before I was a seated judge. But once I became a seated judge, I thought, this is a hostile work environment. You're a judge, you know that. I'm bringing it to your attention. You're not addressing it. Call it racism, call it ineffectiveness, call it what you want to, but this is an issue. It's your job to fix, and you're not fixing it. If I have a hostile work environment, it's your job to change that. Literally nothing happened to repair any of that. What happened is very shortly after, I think it was August that the letter came out. What happened is very shortly after, I was charged with DWI with little to no evidence. And then I was tried in front of one of his homies from Ontario County and convicted. That's what happened.
Wow. Right. So for you, when you hear that he is not racist, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, first of all, I believe that everyone is racist, right? Every person that has the ability to be is racist. And it's just a matter of accepting that and then trying to hone in on that and fix it so you can stop acting on it.
Mhm.
We live in a society where systemic racism is far and wide. And we live in a society where he functions at the top of that society as a white heterosexual male who is a judge. So I couldn't dare take his assessment because how would he know?
Right.
You know, how would he
Mhm.
know? He's not
Right.
experiencing himself. But I think you'd be hard pressed to find a Black person from Ontario County who wouldn't tell you a thing or two about what justice dispensation looks like out there and how it's incredibly different for people of color than it is for non-people of color.
Mhm. Nah, I would.
And and so it's disheartening to me when people of color jump up to go defend a non-person of color because they just can't wait to be the first person to go vouch for the why?
Mhm.
Why is that your fight? How is that remotely your fight? Whether or not a white man is racist, why is that any of your business?
Mhm. So where were you when you heard about Judge Doran and this photo of him in blackface? Like, what were you doing the moment it was released?
I got it before it was released.
Okay.
I was laying in my bed and I was like, oh my goodness. And then I went to put it on social media immediately. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to step back from this and wait a second. And then I saw that it was released publicly. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put it on social media and kind of see what the response is to this. Because, and it's funny because a lot of people said to me, because the way it's phrased, people think he resigned.
Right. That's what I thought. I thought it was like, okay, everybody's making a big deal out of it. He stepped down. This is what is happening.
Nothing, a whole bunch of nothing. And it's like, you know what? I'm not going to order the staplers anymore since you guys are so pissy. I'm going to stop ordering the staplers and the markers and I'm just going to do the judging. Okay.
Mm. And I think that people like me who don't really understand this whole process, you're thinking he stepped down, he's no longer a judge, but he's just no longer an administrative judge. So he's no longer over the judges.
Which means absolutely nothing for you.
Right,
If you
because
are in front of him in court, it does not affect you.
so if we still have, oh, basically, so we still possibly have a racist judge presiding over Black people.
Primarily Black and brown people every day.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the only thing though. I'm sure aside from what I believe is disparate sentencing and being told to use the back door, and that's 3 experiences that I've had since 2016. That's enough for me to say you haven't changed. And to be honest, you thinking it's appropriate to dress in blackface at any point, right? Without
So do you
additional
believe in
evidence.
redemption? So a lot of people are saying that was 20, what was it, 30 years ago or however many years. Do you believe that people deserve redemption?
Absolutely. I do not think that people stop being racist, especially not just through their own personal lived experiences when they live in Ontario County around nothing but other white people. I don't think that suddenly they just realize one day, oh, you know what? I'm probably not living in a way that is most helpful for people of all races. I don't think that just happens.
Right.
And I think even the letter was arrogant. Even the letter was dismissive. A
Mhm.
photo from 1988 has surfaced. What is the relevance? A photo of me in blackface has surfaced. Let's focus on what's important. You chose to dress up as a Black person and you thought that it was funny or comedic or appropriate for Halloween. You lead with what year it was. You lead with in the spirit of I resign. You lead with things that make it sound like something completely other than what it is. No, there's a picture of you in blackface. You no longer have administrative duties, and you still will be presiding over cases of Black and brown people in Rochester and Monroe County and Ontario County, and none of them should feel safe. And you know what? Under the law, right, there's this portion where you say you avoid the very impropriety, the very appearance of impropriety. So if it
Okay.
even looks wrong,
Right.
you're wrong. If I'm a defendant, I don't want that to be my judge. It looks wrong. I feel like you can't be fair and impartial, and I have a basis to feel that way.
Especially at this point where you have a photo circulating. Now, is the photo available? I have not seen a copy of the
Isn't
photo.
it hilarious? I have not seen it either. I
Hmm.
don't know anybody that's seen the photo. The photo doesn't exist anywhere in the world. Must be nice, huh? How do we know when it's from?
I know, right? Because I've been searching for the photo and I can't find it. As far as your case, when you were arrested, I know that in the media, a lot of times you just said you weren't guilty. Do you honestly feel today that you weren't guilty of the crimes that they charged
Well,
you with?
let's be clear. I was charged with DWI.
Mhm.
That's it, as a
Okay.
misdemeanor. I did
Mhm.
not take any breath test. The only field sobriety test I took, I passed. I
Oh,
was
okay.
sitting on the side of the road in a disabled vehicle. Two of my tires had blown out. It was a blizzard. It was February 13th, 2016. It was the year after my cousin had been killed. Literally to the day, the year after my cousin had been killed. I was driving to the gym to go work out before I went to arraignments that morning. I will never tell anybody that I was about to go lift weights over my head at 7 o'clock in the morning drunk. I got into a car accident. My tires blew out. I hit the median. I got into a car accident today, honestly. If I don't know if you follow me on social media, but I
Mhm.
ran into my house. I
Oh,
get into
wow.
I'm not drunk now either. I just can't drive. Okay, this is a well-known fact about me. I generally drive a truck because I
Okay.
hit stuff. Unfortunately,
Mm.
it's something I do. I'm a little distracted as a driver. I'm always like doing 9 million things if I'm honest, and I'm usually distracted. So I'm on the side of the road, not moving my car, waiting for my friends to come pick me up because I know that I can't go anywhere, which I don't know how you are convicted of driving while intoxicated in a vehicle that literally can't move, that you say you're not going to move. The officer gets there and he's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "Oh, well, now I'm waiting for a ride to come get me because I've got to go to work later. I was going to the gym." But the
Mm.
media reports that I thought I was going to work. Now, the officer literally testifies, no, she was going to the gym. She was going to the Elm Grove YMCA. That's the direction she was headed. That's the exit she was at. But the media reported that I was so inebriated that I thought I was going to work. I live off of Lake Avenue. I literally turn left to go to work. I don't have to make another turn. Not another
Wow.
turn. But I was so that's how it kind of started. Again, information that's never been leaked in any other judge's case was leaked to the media in my case immediately, including my home address, my driver's license number, my home telephone number. Yeah. So I still to this day get letters from people in jail who write me at home because my address was broadcasted all over. And
Wow.
because of the case going on and on and on. So, as I told you previously, so after that happened, generally you go and there's a wheel of judges that you can choose from. And because I was a city court judge, they said, well, we don't want a city court judge, right? Okay, so I think we're going to get a town court judge from the same jurisdiction
Mhm.
that I actually live in. No, we get an Ontario County judge, that Judge
Hmm.
Doran picks. I don't want him.
Right.
No, thank you. I don't like him. I don't live in Ontario County for a reason. Okay, because
Mhm.
thank you. And I don't want that, but I had no choice. I had no say so or whatever. The case goes on. I'm talking to my lawyer. I'm like, look, there's not a DWI here any way you slice it. I've been a DA. I've been a defense attorney. There's not a DWAI here. There's not anything here. I'm not driving. I'm not drunk. I passed the field sobriety test. I essentially get arrested because when the trooper approaches me, he is a bit aggressive for my liking, and I'm a bit aggressive too when you're aggressive. And so I have on sweatpants and a wife beater, and my hair's all over because I'm going to the gym. I don't look like a judge. I have on a hoodie. You know what I mean? So when he starts talking to me any kind of way, and he's like, oh, well, were you, because at first he goes, you smell fruity. I said, well, I'm a Black woman. I have mango butter in my hair. I don't know. What are you even trying to ask me? He goes, oh, were you drinking? I said, no, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't drinking. I'm going to the gym. So very shortly after that, he says to me, essentially get in his car. And I say, no. And he tells me I'm under arrest. This is within, literally, be clear, I'm in the back of the trooper's car within 5 minutes of him approaching me.
Wow.
Under arrest for DWI. So when people talk about, well, you always said you weren't guilty, you didn't accept responsibility. No, I didn't, because I didn't do it. And I'm not gonna, and to be honest with you, number one, my constituents wouldn't have been so pressed if I would have said, hey guys, I got a DWI, I'm sorry. They wouldn't have been too torn up and crazy about that. Number two, I've served more sentences than any human being has ever served for a misdemeanor DWI. Okay, I did 6 months in jail. I did 1 year of a conditional discharge. I did 3 years on probation. I did 4 years of ignition interlock. I've served a felony sentence at least for this. There's no reason for me to say, you can't punish me no more.
Right.
There's no reason for me to lie. What you gonna do? You can't beat me.
Right.
So, but I've said from the outset, I wasn't drunk. I was an angry Black woman being treated a certain kind of way by a trooper, and I did not appreciate it. And when he saw me, I did not mix with what his idea of a judge was. So he treated me like he would have treated any angry Black woman on the side of the road that day. When my friend came, who happened to be an attorney, and was like, what are you doing? She's a city court judge and she's not drunk, she's pissed. The trooper suddenly got out of the car, made 9 million phone calls, kept leaving, I didn't ever say that because I knew already that the easiest way to get removed was to assert your judicial privilege. So I didn't tell him I was a judge because I was like, guess what? It's 9 million judges with DWIs. None of them get removed. None of them get removed. You get removed for saying, I'm a judge, treat me better. I'm a Black woman before I'm anything. I don't think you treated me no kind of special. Okay, so I'm not telling you anything about me. Right. What I did say was, you're ruining my whole fucking life. I used the F word gratuitously. And in the decision in my case, essentially what the judge said was, there was no evidence that you were in an accident that morning. There was very little evidence of much things, but what judge would curse at a trooper? What judge would use the F word? And I was like, first of all, a lot of these judges curse gratuitously.
Yes.
But when you're disrespecting me and I'm not at work and we're on the side of the road and you're talking to me crazy, I don't have a script for how I have to treat you. I don't have to respect people that disrespect me. Especially not police officers who I think are doing it because they think they're smarter than me because they're white. Yeah. No, I'm not about to abide your racism. I'm about to check you right here.
Right.
So when he was talking to me, I'm like, I'm under arrest. You said I smell like fruit. That's not sufficient probable cause. What are you even talking about? You can't even make an arrest in this case. Okay, I'm a little cocky with it.
Right. They don't like that. No.
He was furious. And he's like, who is this little Black girl telling me about probable cause?
Right.
He's like, oh, you read some article. Now you think you're Jay-Z. You listen to a rap song. He didn't know that I'm a seated judge with a whole entire law degree that's been a prosecutor and a defense attorney. He doesn't know that.
Right, right.
So yeah, so I got treated like anyone would get treated. And well, not anyone, but I got treated how he saw me in that moment. And I was very, very cognizant of it because I was like, you're doing the most. And I was so adamant at the time. All I kept saying is, I'm not drunk. You're never going to get a conviction for anything. You're just doing this to be an asshole. You're just trying to ruin my day. You're just trying to ruin my life, especially now that Christian told you I'm a judge. I'm not drunk. You're just doing this to try to destroy me because no matter what the outcome is, people are never going to believe I was innocent. Once there's an arrest and it's a judge, they're always going to be like, she got special treatment. Even to this day, you see all of the punishment I received and everyone's like, she got special treatment. I'm not a judge anymore.
Right.
I went to jail as a seated judge. I went to jail over a misdemeanor DWI first offense. No, there was not a shred of special treatment that wasn't anything but negative in this case.
Now, recently, well, it was a few weeks ago, I believe, maybe even a couple months ago. I watched a powerful video that you did speaking about Mayor Lovely Warren. I thought it was powerful in the fact that you identified something that so many people don't pay attention to, and that is how Black women of power are treated. You know, and when you decided to speak out about the treatment of Mayor Lovely Warren, what went through your mind before you made that video, before you told the world how you felt about what was happening to a woman, a Black woman?
One of the things, I don't want to say that I regret it because I think that things ultimately happen the way that they should, but one of the things that I wish I would have done differently is I wish I would have been a lot more vocal when my case was going on. I think that there was a presentation of me that was not remotely me. And now so many people have been able to get to know me just through social media that they're like, wow, we really kind of had it all wrong about this lady. And I wish that I would have done it then because I had an even more significant audience at the time. But I was so desperately trying to not lose my position that I had worked my whole life for, that the last thing I wanted to do was irritate these people any further when they had made it abundantly clear they could destroy my everything. And so what I thought was, my God, how she must feel. And to know that irrespective of what you think of decisions she may have made more recently, to know her from law school, to know her from RBBA before she was the mayor, when she was just an aide to Assemblyman David Gant, and to know how she worked hard for people of color to get jobs, even as the mayor, how she tried really hard to give people positions, and to know that, again, like I said, I can't speak to another person's feelings or hurt, but what I saw her do, not what she told me, what I literally saw her do, made me not question her loyalty to this community and the reasons that she put herself out there, the reasons that she took the kind of flack she did. Not for nothing, the mayor does not make that much money. Everybody likes to pretend, you know what I mean? But like, it's not some incredibly wealthy, yes, it's prestigious because you're powerful, but in Rochester, you can only be so powerful as a Black person. Do you not see that they just completely wiped out her life?
Right.
You know
No,
what else?
go
They
ahead.
told her not to run.
Yes,
The
I heard
Democrats
about that.
told her she could not beat the machine and
Right.
she would be defeated eventually. And my God, when they tell you, do they tell you or do they tell you?
Mm.
So I could empathize with her like I didn't think anyone could. And I knew that a lot of people would be like, well, what is she? She never did that for you. She didn't have to.
Right.
I didn't have to either. But just because you don't have to do something doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do.
So did you get a lot of backlash for that video?
I've had a lot of people, yes. In fact, I've had people say to me, that's why you lost the election. You shouldn't have aligned yourself so heavily with the mayor while you were running for a position that people are trying to oust people from. And I was like, thank God, unlike a lot of people who won the election, I have a job. So I'm gonna be all right.
Shade, shade, this shade.
I'm just saying I'm okay. I'm employed. But one thing that I do not want to do is make decisions. And this is what I said. I said, I wouldn't lie or change what I believed for a job making $189,000 a year. You think I'm gonna do it for a position making 26?
Right.
I believe what I believe. And if you want me, you want me. And if you don't, then you don't, but you're gonna know exactly what you're getting. When it comes to these politics, you're gonna know. And I didn't support Lovely because I thought she was gonna win. I didn't think she was gonna win.
Yeah.
I don't think you can come back from the kind of attacks that the local media do to Black people here. They are they are Mortal Kombat style, finish any chance of ever. It's amazing that I have a lucrative practice here. Everybody's surprised I didn't just flee Rochester. Nobody expected me to stay here. Literally, removal from the bench is considered career suicide. That's what they call it. You are supposed to be dead. It is over. So I didn't expect her to win, but I didn't care. I literally had media personalities who would call me and say, if you were to kill yourself, we would have blood on our hands. And they would be perfectly fine with going on the radio the next day and trying to have me kill myself. You know what I mean?
Right.
I couldn't possibly know that a Black woman, a Black mother, a Black woman who gave so much of her time, love, and efforts to this community could be in a position like that and nobody would say anything, especially because not, I mean, who am I? But I say things and people listen. They feel,
Mhm.
you know, they feel like, oh, you made a point, you were articulate, and they also believe that I care about the community. So they don't think I'm just talking out of my behind. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Now,
So I'm
what
trying to be proud.
advice would you give Mayor Lovely Warren at this point in her career? It's over, but she could bounce back from this. I don't know.
Oh, she'll bounce back from this. I
Mm.
don't doubt for 1 second that she'll bounce back from this. I think that I think that leaving Rochester is not a bad choice. I think that people are very, very quick to forget the things you do for them here and very, very long to remember any tragedy you may have had befall upon you. They want to talk about it forever and ever. And also here, there's this extra layer that comes with being a Black woman, right? Where not only is it humiliating in the public eye, but then you have Black people who like to ostracize you and drag you and make fun of you and mock you. It's just the coolest thing to do because they get likes. And it's like, you too?
Mhm.
You're
Yes.
you too. It's like, somebody was joking the other, I think it was Chaz Bruce, and he does it in a way that I don't think is disparaging. He does it in a way that's funny. But he
Yes.
was like, I've been cutting ribbons all summer long for y'all.
I saw that.
That's how you gonna treat me? I ain't cutting
Mhm.
ribbons, fireworks canceled. Like it's funny, but it's like, no, you know that this person to get to this place in their life has made some sacrifice.
Yes.
Some
Yes.
serious sacrifice. And you don't do that because you desire to make $150,000 a year and there's no other role you can do it in. Okay. You don't
Right.
do it because you desire to live in a city that is struggling, that is in poverty, and you live in the middle of the city in the throes of it. Just was said, when I became a judge, I didn't move to Park Ave. I live on Flower City Park. You live in the throes of it with the
Mhm.
community that you're trying to change. You don't do that and not care. You don't do that and not be invested. You know what I mean? And things may happen along the way, but we only see snapshots. And I know that her daughter is young,
Yes.
and I know that she was already ending a marriage. So it seems like this might just be a good time to go someplace else. And I think that she is incredibly intelligent and well connected. I think she could easily go somewhere else and land and be perfectly fine. I think she can be perfectly fine here if she wants to, but it's a long road in Rochester, and people are nasty and people are racist and people say racist, disparaging things. And you know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
hard to ignore that long term. It's hard to not have that affect you. It's hard not to internalize that to some degree.
Mhm. No, I agree. Now, as far as you're concerned, what is next for you? I know you're doing you're helping a lot of people through your now you have a private practice.
I do. I just went back to my practice. Like I told you, I had a practice. It was in the
Mhm.
Wilder building. It's in the Wilder building again. I didn't have intentions on running for judge until I had intentions on, I never intended to run for office. I feel like politicians all lie and I am not good at that. So I'm like, you're not going to like me because I'm going to tell you how I feel. So I
Mhm.
never planned on that. I've run for office a few times since then because I think that you have extreme power. And I think that there's a demographic here that desperately needs to have people that can speak for them in power. Unfortunately, that demographic that I appeal to most, they're not really big voters.
That's the sad part about Rochester is that we need more people to vote in our community. We need more people to get registered because the only way to truly make change is through the laws. We can protest and we can do all these wonderful things that people get out and you want to have these stop the violence things, and the only way of true change is through changing the laws. What do you think about the protesters, the constant protest of everything that's going on? What is your opinion on?
I think the protests, I think, have stopped. I haven't heard of any in a bit, and
Yes.
I haven't been to any in a while. I was actively protesting. I believe in trying to get in every lane of social justice that you can. So I was trying to represent the protesters. I was trying to be at the protest. I was trying to, but after the grand jury voted not to indict, I don't know what the point was anymore.
Right.
We
Right.
weren't going to get the change that we had been fighting for. Unfortunately, we had national attention, but we lost it, right? We had national attention, and then we had Kumbaya Night when all of the old people came and RPD was shooting the crap out of us, but they stopped shooting us. And so the media was there, and the media was like, oh, this is nothing. So they left. And that happens a lot in Rochester. I've had a lot of instances where there are activists that I talk to other places like New York City, like down south, other attorneys that I'll correspond with and say, help me, you know, this is happening here again. The police just killed the
Right.
4th Black man this year. And they'll basically say, no, we're not
Wow.
coming there. You guys don't show up for yourself.
Wow.
And all you're going to do when we get there is attack us from being outside of the community. You're going to say that we're trying to steal your glory. You're going to say that you're trying to steal your resources, because you guys generally internally infight over resources because you have a lot of community leaders who don't have jobs.
Right.
So you're competing for funding and for, you know, saying donate to this GoFundMe, donate to my GoFundMe because now I have this organization. You're unemployed. You're competing for funds, even if you have the best intentions, you know, and you really mean it. Generally, programs need funding to do that. And when you have big programs come in, like BLM, that
Right.
takes away funding from little programs. And so then there's infighting between the organizers. Nobody's going to come to Rochester where our own small community organizers can't stop infighting and put themselves in a bad situation.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It only stands, I say, my sister says this, she says, you do these lives and you talk to people and you give people access to you that shouldn't have it. And when you do that and you're not doing it for a job and you're not doing it to promote you and you're not doing it for your own benefit, you only stand to lose. It's absolutely true. I do things all the time that can only hurt me because I
Right.
interact with people that can't possibly help me. They can't afford to hire me. They just need legal services. They're in peril. So if I say the wrong thing to them or they don't like, you know, they'll be quick to go grieve me. And I'm like, you weren't even my client. you literally didn't pay me. I gave you free advice, told you call a lawyer, and you're grieving me? Yes. That is Rochester in a nutshell. I've had so many people beg me, tell me Jesus told them I'm the lawyer for them. They don't want nobody else. And then 5 months later, they can't keep up with the payment plan and they want to go grieve me. And it's like, I didn't even want to represent you because you didn't have money in the first place, or you could, you know what I mean?
What advice would you give a young Black woman who is interested in possibly becoming a judge and the treatment that you have?
Do it. I'm sorry. You have to take one for the team sometime. And the more of us that do it, the less often it will happen to us. Do it absolutely. And know that it's going to be hard, and know that people are going to come against you, and know that you have to be better and smarter and more on your P's and Q's and more perfect than everybody else, because they're going to try to destroy you if you get up there and you try to do the work you're actually trying to do. But you're stopping them from destroying an entire society. So, you know what I mean?
So is it worth it? Like when you think about all the hard work that you've done, right? Everything that you've accomplished, everything you have achieved in your life, and for these people to just come and take it or try to take everything away from you, is it worth the hassle?
I don't know that if I knew this, I would ever run again. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And aside from being horrible for me, because that's something I'll usually eat and I'll take, I'll be like, well, oh, well, I did it. It was horrible for my family. And that was unbearable. The way that it affected my children, I couldn't cope with that as a mother, you know, like it's my job. My whole goal in all of this was to protect them. So the number of people that felt perfectly fine saying crazy things to my children, or, you know, like that was too much. And there were times that I definitely became a person I didn't recognize, where I was just too stressed. There were times, you know, I've been honest about the fact that during that time period, I struggled with depression. There was all of this talk about me being an alcoholic. And I was like, guys, the reason I haven't gone into a treatment program is, one, because Judge Doran wouldn't allow me to, even though he allows other people of color to go. I wasn't allowed to go to the treatment program when I went and said, because after the conviction, I was very candid. After the conviction, there was another incident, and it was a time that I was blowing into my own device and I had alcohol in my system. Okay. And I pled guilty to that. Now here, I'll tell you exactly what happened. I had been drinking the night before. I had not been drinking before I drove that day. I did not realize that I had been drinking so much that it would register. I was not intoxicated, but any alcohol in my system, even though not everyone's, because it's supposed to be a certain BAC, any alcohol in my system was reported. I
Okay.
blew into the device. It said that it was a failure. I literally got out of my car, got in the passenger seat, and had my daughter drive, who's a licensed driver. It was reported that I made my daughter blow into the device for me to drive drunk. That's not what happened at all. I literally got out of the car. Then, girl, you want to add insult to injury? Then you want to talk about somebody who don't tell on themselves? Then I called probation and was like, oh, I think I just fucked everything up. I just got into the car. I didn't realize that I'm not driving. I would not drive intoxicated, but I want you to know this. I'll come down and take a test. I'm not drunk. Called whole nine. It comes up, oh, you had a bad blow. And the reason it comes up is not because I drove intoxicated, because I didn't. It was the judge said that he said as a condition when I was convicted that I wasn't allowed to drink alcohol. I'm 34 years old at this point. I have a drug and alcohol evaluation that says I don't need treatment. How am I supposed to know that I'm prohibited from doing things that grown people get to do when you told me I was convicted and I was sentenced to the misdemeanor, the minimums, which is a fine? So I came to court though, and I pled guilty to that. I said, look, I didn't realize that I wasn't allowed to drink alcohol, but I'm going to be honest with you. Since this conviction, I'm not okay. I didn't do this. I didn't do this, and you're wrong, and you're ruining my life, and I didn't do this, and now I do drink heavily. Now, whereas I didn't really drink before like that at all, yeah, I'm drinking way too much, and that's probably how I didn't. I left that meeting, went upstairs to Judge Doran and said to him, I'm not okay. I need to go into an inpatient program. I need to go somewhere. I'm falling apart. And yes, this is being led by depression, not alcoholism, but I don't care what you call it. My life is spiraling. I didn't do this. I can't cope. I can't get a handle. He told me I didn't need that level of intervention. Then he took my secure pass and told everybody in the building, including Bob Lonsberry, that I was no longer allowed in the building without security. That was his response to me telling him I was having a mental health crisis.
Wow. Wow.
That's not what they do to white judges.
And so I hear people say Black people shouldn't expect to get treated like, you can't do what white people do, basically.
No,
Have you ever heard that?
I've heard that a million times. And I think if you want to be a slave, just say that. Why in the world would you accept that you should be a second-class citizen who doesn't receive the same rights and treatment as white people?
That is my biggest argument when I hear this attitude of you can't do what white people do. As if we're supposed to sit back and accept this theory that we have to accept that we can't do what white people do. What do you say?
We can't be treated
equally.
I think they have a problem. I think these are the people that you don't argue with because Harriet Tubman would have shot them. You're perfectly fine and complacent in the fact that you live in a racist society and you've accepted it. You are one of the people who's like, I'm not gonna say nothing to that police officer killing that Black man because I got a government job.
Yes.
And I'm not about to lose my government benefits.
Yes.
So you gonna let this man die because you are more important. That is really, and the problem though, is that we've been so brainwashed and indoctrinated with these ideas, right? That we really believe that. We really start to be like, yeah, no, it's perfectly fine to have a double standard. No, she knows she can't be drinking. Yeah, them white people be smoking crack while they driving, but she knows she can't.
Right. I've heard that so many times about you. I've heard that so many times about the mayor. And I'm like, that's unacceptable. That's not it. There's nowhere in this world that I would think, well, hey, that's her fault because she knows she can't do what these white people do.
She knows that she's Black. She can't afford to make a mistake ever in life.
Yes.
Oh, that's realistic. Yeah, that's gonna work out for her. So but that is again, and people say it's not just Rochester. It's not just Rochester, but there is a certain mindset in Rochester that is different from other places because we have incredibly consolidated poverty.
Yes.
That has been in the same location for generation upon generation. So you have generations of people now who have lived in poverty, who maybe have never experienced their parents working or have never experienced life outside of the criminal justice and family court system, who have, you know what I mean? We have generations.
Yes.
And we know that the worst thing you can do for poverty is to concentrate it. You're supposed to break it up and spread it out all over so that people are seeing opportunities and seeing access to other opportunities besides just being poor. And we don't do
Mhm.
that here. And then what we had in addition, because that wasn't unintentional, the crescent and all of that, that was intentional. That was to confine the Black people after the riots. And that's why all of the, you look at the expressways and the literal walls that are up, that was intentional
Mhm.
to make us stuck in these ghettos. You have that. Then you have this odd combination of Black people who were able to escape poverty and get jobs at GM and get jobs at Valio and get jobs at Xerox and Kodak. And now they a little bougie with it. And they don't
Mhm.
want to be associated with you over there in the crescent anymore. In fact, they want to make it abundantly clear that you are not the type of Black person they are.
Right. And that's funny because when I think of it, and then you're on the plantation and you're being mistreated, but you'll stay there because you feel a little better
Because
because
you're on
you
the
make more
plantation.
money. You're on plantation. You're in the house. Like how they
Right,
talked about, the
right,
light skin versus dark skin. You're happy, you're in the house.
right.
So as we wrap this up, what is there anything else you want to add to this or you think is important for some of us to know now
Well,
about you or the criminal justice system?
I want to be very clear that none of this is legal advice. I'm speaking to you in my capacity as a human being in my own personal experiences from my perspective, not as an attorney. Um, I think that it's incredibly important for people to know that there is so much power in the system, and there is so much already inherent bias, systematic racism, and injustice built in that we really can't afford the appearance of impropriety. That when something comes up to raise a red flag that Black people will be treated more unjustly or more unfairly or disparately, it should be a huge red flag because the entire system already functions for that to be the outcome.
Right, right.
So the lack of the I want to say the lack of outrage or the apathy in Rochester is always so difficult for me to overcome. Just people are overburdened with their own stuff and so
Right.
apathetic, and that is discouraging to me. When I say 20 years behind, it's one of the reasons that I think when you say what should the mayor do, she's a grown woman. I'm sure she has a plan, but I wouldn't be surprised if her plan was to relocate.
Yes. I thought about that too, because I'm going to come up with 5 jobs I think she could go into.
She could go be
So,
the mayor. Look, Atlanta need a mayor.
yeah, she
Keisha,
can go. Yeah, and I feel like she has a story just like you. I feel like there's so many things that happen to people who work so hard to get where they want to be, and then these things happen. And it's almost like you could be a testimony for someone else that may be experiencing exactly what you've already experienced. You might be helping someone that's in the midst of all of this that's going on, like
and honestly, be afraid, but it's much more common than you know. There is a judge in Ohio, Judge Tracy Hunter, who became a judge and suddenly she became a felon. And now she's not a judge, she's a pastor. She's not even a lawyer anymore. There's, I believe in Ohio as well, the district attorney is suing for a 1983 civil rights violation, saying that the police officers and the judges are conspiring against her. She's the DA. The mayor of Maryland, they're trying to charge her right now with all types of fraud because they said she went on vacation and they want to know how she paid for it. So there are things like campaign finances or rules that no one ever pays attention to, like DWI,
yes.
that no one, and suddenly these become groundbreaking, earth-shattering crime of the century. You killed everyone in the world and you have to be destroyed. You have to be stopped because society's not safe from you.
Right. Okay, because I'm looking into the DA because we've always heard that, Sandra Dorley has been accused of being racist and
Racist.
her, and so we're looking into trying to figure out how do we determine, just like with your case, Mayor Lovely Warren, these things are in place, systemic racism that destroys families, Black people. How do we stop this? How do we go in and help this systemic racism that continues to destroy our community, if that makes sense?
To me, it looks like a lot of cleaning house. It looks like having a district attorney that's progressive. I don't
Mhm.
know why Sandy got elected again. Her practices, I mean, the stats are very clear. Maybe not what goes to federal court, but this stat, they've done lots of studies where they say that you're much more likely to get drug treatment court if you're not Black. You're much more likely to get mental health treatment if you're not Black. You're much more likely to get probation if you're not Black. You know what I mean? So the evidence is really, really clear. We have to uh, I personally recall Sandy saying before, she's so frustrated with people saying, why are Black people disproportionately incarcerated? And she's like, because they commit crimes more.
Hmm.
If you believe that, we're not going anywhere with you.
Right.
Because we know that's not true. Statistically,
Right.
that's not true. There aren't even as many Black people. There's no way that we could commit crimes more, but we know that we're arrested more. We know that we're prosecuted more harshly. And so if you don't start to change that on a systematic level, you don't make a change. And that's what's scary about Rochester. We're
Right.
not that progressive about
Right.
making those changes. So it's like, well, eventually we have a progressive DA. Yeah, but they have one in California right now. They have ones
Right.
other places. So if you want to not be oppressed, you don't have to be stuck here. And that, I think that's the hardest, scariest part, because I think I know a lot of people who went to law school and got educated and came back here and left. And they
Right.
wanted to come back. They wanted to stay. They wanted to give back to this community, but it's frustrating because the
Mhm.
people that you want to help are not even in a position to help themselves.
Right. Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Oh.
Well, we've got a thing though. This gun thing is supposed to bring money into the community, right? It's really money. Give people money.
Right.
Give poor people money.
Yes.
Doesn't
We
solve
have
all
to.
their problems, but it's really helpful.
Right. We have to figure out a way to get this society, our community, up and running because it is sad to see so many people living in poverty. You look at the school districts, you look at our school district, the city school district is the worst. So
And then
how do we fix
Pittsburgh
this?
is the best. No, but that's exactly it. You can't fix something that's intentionally broken. You can't have the worst performing city school district in the world. You get next to the best. You can't have the worst place in the world for Black people to live, which Rochester is, and then have the best be Pittsburgh and Fairport. Because
Yes.
then you know how
Right.
to make it good. You know how to make it decent. You know how to make it not crime ridden. You just don't care to because we are literally supporting your ability to live in Pittsburgh, your ability to live in
Right.
Ontario County. We paid for that house in Victor. All these little minimal arrests for nothing, all these non-convictions, all this overtime that the police get for crime. We're paying for your lifestyle.
Right.
We are the currency that they're exchanging. There's no incentive. And that's the frustration. You want people to change it who can't, or you want people to change it who don't care to.
I do want to thank you for
Well, thank
joining me
you.
tonight
Thank you for
and
having me.
giving
I'm
us a
sorry
little
I'm
insight.
long-winded.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, have a good night.
You too. Bye.